workshop at 9:34, Tuesday, May 2nd. Purpose of the workshop is discussion of the emergency management plan. Commissioner Majewski, you've been working on this. I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Yeah, so this is basically, after the past few months, just dealing with EMS, fire, and sheriff's department. Robin mentioned this morning about just the number of increase of calls and everything. And, you know, trying to make everybody work together, which I've learned more about first responders and what all goes into it than just, like she said, the sirens going down the road. So there's a lot that goes into it, and one thing everybody was referenced was the emergency management plan. And so Mr. Remke sent this to me, and so we started reviewing the thing, and there were some things that, events that are happening that have happened in the past, and there's been questions about. And so one thing we discussed about having, and it says in the deal that we will review it annually, so this is our review. And Mr. Remke is just gonna get up there and discuss the annexes that are up for renewal and some other things that we need to improve upon. And like I said, when I got this thing, it's 700 pages, and it is a lot, and there's a lot of stuff that can easily be overlooked if you don't look at it every day. And so that's what he's gonna talk a little bit about, so we can be better at handling public safety moving forward.
Morning, Judge, Commissioners.
Morning.
Like Commissioner Majewski said, this is a large document, 700 pages. So it includes a basic plan and 22 annexes. So by the state, we have to have an emergency management plan. We don't have to have the one quite as big as we have, but we're in what they would call the advanced emergency operations plan. We're advanced. You can do basic, which is really a basic plan and a couple of annexes, but ours is advanced because we have the 22 annexes to go with them. So the basic plan is just that, it's basic. It kind of discusses basically what we do during an emergency. It has some direction for some of the stuff that's in the annexes, but it doesn't go into as much depth. So when you add the annexes to it, it goes into a little bit more depth into each section. So I'm going to go over the ones that are going to be, so with that, every year we're supposed to review the plan, make sure that it's good. We do that. We look over, I look over it and make sure there's nothing that's happened in the past year that we may need to change or in our plan. We're required every 5 years to revise and submit these to the state. So they're broken up. They're not all the basic plan in 22 are due in 1 year. They're stair-stepped somewhat. So there's 10 that are due for revision and resubmitting to the state in 2024, in September of 2024. So those are Annex A, which is warning. Annex C is shelter and mass care. Annex E is evacuation. Annex J is recovery. Annex O is human services. Annex P is hazard mitigation. Annex R is search and rescue. Annex S is transportation. Annex T is donations. And Annex U is legal. Those are all going to be due for revision and resubmittal to the state in 2024. So one of the things we want to talk about, one of the things that came up from an event from last year was a couple things we could do better in a certain incident. So one of them is direction and control. So in a multi-department and jurisdictional response, chain of command is very important. So you can't have a whole bunch of folks show up and just kind of do what they want. There needs to be structure to it. The incident commander really has that whole view of what's going on. So individuals that show up should report back to incident command. An example of that would be if a crew is given a assignment, they should go complete that assignment, and then when they're done with that assignment, they should report back to command to tell them, hey, we've got our assignment done, and what's our next assignment? What do you want us to do next? Now, the incident commander will either give them another assignment, maybe send them back to staging. It just depends on what's going on. But what we can't have is crews going and doing things without command knowing about it. So, so that's very important in a large incident, that we make sure that the chain of command is followed. Another important aspect of an incident is accountability. So when you have a large incident, it's hard to keep track of everybody that's there. So it's important that we have check-in and check-out procedures. And that, I will tell you, any exercise or incident that I know of has always been a challenge. We do an annual exercise through the Brazos Valley Search and Rescue Group that I'm a part of, and every year that's a problem for us. It's hard to get people to check in. It's even harder to get them to check out. So we need to know who's there, so we know what resources we have there, but we also need to know when they leave, so we know we don't have to account for those people. Those people are gone from our incident. We don't have to worry about their safety anymore as far as the incident goes. So that's very important. So we're looking into some things that we may be able to do with some ArcGIS software. Some parts of that, like the search and rescue part, there may be a check-in component to that we can use to streamline that a little bit and make it a little easier. So
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that because I gave that a lot of thought after you and me and Commissioner Majewski spoke, and let's bring IT into that conversation, and maybe ArcGIS has this this capability, but y'all were talking about something one yesterday. What was it again? Net1 or
FirstNet.
SearchNet?
FirstNet.
FirstNet. And you know how we were kind of talking about how all of the first responders and public safety people, basically have to be registered within this. And I was kind of wondering if, and again, I don't know if ArcGIS does this or if there's something out there that does this, but perhaps there's a tool that uses, some sort of geofencing, module that can be created either, by the emergency management coordinator or by the IC when we have those events, so that it'll like ding, their phone or their devices that, and sends them reminders, check in or check out, or,
Right.
I don't know. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because I was really kind of thinking about how, since
And
that
I'm-
seems to be a problem, not just in Washington County, but,
I'm sure
outside.
there is software out there that will do exactly what we want to. It just depends on how user-friendly it would be for us, how easy it would be to implement that countywide. The problem is when you have jurisdictions that come from outside of the county into the county, then we'd have to make that piece work too, because they may not be using the same thing we're using.
Right.
So
Right.
that's one thing we would have to consider, but it is worth looking into.
Yeah.
And I know there are some stuff out there that we probably can look at to see.
Well, all counties don't have ArcGIS either,
Well, exactly.
They don't
That's
have
what I
the
was gonna,
software. so it's
that's
not
what I was gonna say.
it's not that simple. But
And if we don't find a solution, then again, this is something that we would take to the legislature, potentially.
So those particular two things, how do we fix those things locally here? How can we fix those? As I mentioned last month, in my report, myself and the county EMC are working on our local emergency planning committee. We had a planning meeting on April 13th that we invited public safety partners to. It was pretty well attended for the first meeting for planning. What we intend to do with that is to expand that to include private industry, the ISDs, the hospital, those sorts of people, so we get a larger group. That particular, the LEPC is really more for hazardous material type stuff, but we want to make that more of a all hazards approach, just like our emergency operations plan is, because it's not specific to one type of incident. It's not for floods or just for fire or just for hurricane. It's for all, supposed to cover all hazards. So with that, we plan to do some training and some exercises. We already are going to start on a little small scale of I don't know if y'all heard about the statewide Hurricane Indigo exercise. We're going to have a small piece in that. That's going to be on May 17th, where we'll bring people into our EOC, the normal people that would come, and kind of do that briefing thing that we normally do. It's also, June 1st starts hurricane season, so that'll be a good primer for that, in case we ever need to do that. And make sure our contact lists are good for that, and those sorts of things. So we're working on that. The other thing is that a deficiency that we noticed in this, maybe not a deficiency, but maybe something we can do better, is public information media releases. So it's very important that we get information out to the public and to the media before people start telling their own story, so to speak. We want to get good information out there. We need to get it out there in a timely manner, and we need to stop the misinformation. So if we put the information out, the facts out, then that helps take care of all that misinformation stuff. It won't take care of all of it, but at least we'd have the right story out, right? So, you know, right now it says, well, county judge is responsible for all emergency management, and part of that is the PIO. So right now, our point of contact for the state is the county judge's office. So, you know, the process we use now is when we have an incident that requires it, we gather all the information from the appropriate sources, we craft a message, we send it to the legal department to make sure it's legally correct, and then make sure the IC and agrees with it, and then really the last clearinghouse is really the judge's office. It needs to be approved to go out to the media. That's the way we do it now. Is there a better way? Sometimes that's cumbersome. To me, it feels like it might take a little bit more time. We do want to take enough time to make sure we get the right message out, but we also need to do it maybe more quickly if we could. So, and then we probably need to talk about if we need to do an actual media release or a press release where we have people in front of a camera, who's going to do that? Is it the county judge? Is it going to be the commissioner of the precinct that maybe it's in? Or do we have another person that we want to assign to that? So that's one thing we need to look at and see what the court would like to do with that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to talk about that again. I know we've been talking about a PIO for a few years. It seems like it's becoming more ever important to have, but I think it's gonna be critical that, kind of like what Brian said, we have to decide like what types of events are media releases, who do they report to, you know, what are their job responsibilities. I think that's probably gonna be the more difficult aspect of it. I don't know.
And the one thing I'm glad after coming through our discussions was about the training and getting those things out there. And I know we talk about all the time, it's like, hey, you know, yeah, I've been trained on this, but it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's the refresher part of it. And I know today you're supposed to be at an active shooter deal, and with the HSAC, and I was like, man, we got this thing, and he's like, no, I'll be here. But that is the thing, is there's different departments that go to these different events, training on it at different times, whatever suits there. And I think that if we can figure out how to get everybody to come back together and say, hey, this is what I learned at this one, and you know, we keep those I think you call them tabletop exercises and going, and that way it's a constant learning refresher course basically. And I felt like this is what we want to do, is have a refresher course on what this emergency management plan really has in it. Like I said, there's a lot of things in here and a lot of people that have different responsibilities that is like, wow, and I'm thinking to myself, why are they in charge of that, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just like, then after you explained it, I was like, well, that makes sense. And so, like I said, it is 700 pages. Do we need to come up with something that's more condensed to have like just maybe a checklist type thing where this is, hey, this is where we're going first? And like I said, in these situations, you know, one thing I do know is that everybody in our county involved with the first responders want to make things go the right way. And that's what I learned through the discussion and learning about this, is everybody wants to work together and get this thing right to protect our community.
Right. And, you know, with certifications, like I have a paramedic certification, every 4 years I have to have so much CE hours to reapply for that, or to keep that certification going. So that may be something we need to look at countywide for county departments and make sure they're doing that. I'm sure they are, because they have to do that for some of this stuff. but even countywide, I mean, even for the volunteer fire departments, you know, what, if you take it, like you said, if you take a class and it was 15 years ago, well, some things have changed in 15 years. There are different ways to do it and those sorts of
Absolutely.
things, so. And the last thing I want to point out is their social media. Social media is very difficult to control, especially during an incident. Everybody wants to put something out, look at this, see what happened here, that sort of thing. The thing we need to control is social media at the incident from the responders, right? We can't have responders going out and putting things out. That should be cleared. Anything that goes, information that comes from that scene needs to go through the incident commander and through the process, right? It's just like a media release. They should not be putting pictures of things, especially identifiable things, on social media that maybe the person that they're putting that picture on doesn't even know what happened there, right? So that's a pretty harsh way to find out about some things. You know, I see pictures all the time on Facebook that's like, look at this wreck, and it's got, you know, you can see what color car it is, and, you know, that creates a whole lot of problem for folks, right? So I know we have a social media policy for the county that says you're not supposed to do that, right? But we may need to make sure that we incorporate that into other folks that would be responding with us, especially on a large incident, because it's hard to control that. Now, I'm not sure exactly how to do that, but maybe there's some, and we can put that in the MOU or ILAs that we have with other counties and that sort of thing. That, hey, if you're coming to help us, this is our social media policy. So we just need to figure out a way to control that. And I don't know the best way to do that. I don't know, county attorney's office may be able to help us with that as well, to see how we can do that. So those are the things that I wanted to point out, that we know are some problems that we can fix. We can fix all these problems. We just have to get it done, and this is just to let the court know that we're going to work on those things. So it's not a review of the whole plan, because if we reviewed the whole plan, we'd be here forever. But that plan has a lot of wording in it that's required by the state and FEMA. You have to have all the NIMS words in there. So that's what makes it, some of it long. But we just need to make sure when we're going through these plans that we have things the way we want them.
So in times of crisis, you fall to your level of training, correct?
Correct.
How much training have we done locally with this plan?
With this plan, probably not a whole lot. We've had a lot of real world incidents that we've used the plan in. But have we had really large scale exercises besides maybe tabletops? No, sir.
And no one has come to you and asked for those trainings either?
No, nobody's come say, hey, Brian, we'd like to do a countywide training or whatever. But I think that's something we can do. And through this local emergency planning committee, I think we can get some of that. Hopefully we can get some traction there.
So the problem with these plans is this, is that we write them, put them on a shelf, and let them collect dust. That's not going to get it when you're in a time of crisis.
Right.
If you're in a time of crisis, you're going to fall to your level of training. You should have done some training in between so that you're ready and prepared for that incident, whatever it may be. You may not be able to train for the perfect incident or the exact incident, but you can prepare for an incident. I think that's what I'm getting out of this, is that while we do need to maintain this document and keep it up to date, we also need to train so that we follow it. I think that is the key out of this whole meeting, is that we haven't been doing that. If we're gonna do anything to create change here today, then we need to start training and following the document.
Yeah.
And it does require participation from all possible responders. Because if you don't get everybody there, then we're gonna miss a step somewhere, right? So that's the problem. We have to have buy-in from all departments. County, volunteer, we might can even involve counties that are adjacent to us that have responded with us.
Well,
to
without
make sure
being-
that all works.
Without being called Captain Obvious, that's what's called Emergency Management Coordinator, Brian.
Yes, sir.
And that is going to be your effort and your charge.
Yes, sir.
And this is what I'm saying, support, so everything that I've read and seen, that people have been doing a great job. Can we be better, obviously? And that's what the point of this was, with me, bringing up the reviewing of it, is, hey, we knew we had some things that needed to be changed and worked on, and I'm glad that we had the discussions we had, that you were already working on those things and moving in the right direction. So, this is, are you gonna ever be perfect? No, but we're gonna strive to be, yes, and I think that's what all our first responders, everybody involved here wants to do is, are we gonna make mistakes? Yes, but hey, we're gonna try to learn from them and get better, so.
Absolutely.
I tell my kids all the time, baseball, get over it, get better. That's what you gotta do, get over it, don't worry about it, it's past, it's done. Can't control what happened there, we gotta move forward and get better.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So that's all I have, unless y'all have something else for me.
I do not.
No,
Anybody?
y'all touched on the emergency event drills, so.
That's the deal. Okay. Anything else? Any other discussion?
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir.